Time to investigate NeuroWeapon attacks against some gang stalking targets, 12/10/2025. My name is Bonnie Calcadno. There's a video you can see about my government gang stalking, which began in 2006 at stopgangstalkingpolice2.com/mystory/. In an article I found online entitled Are Electromagnetic Weapons Involved? Taking Victims of Havana Syndrome Seriously, printed in the LA Times in Voices on February 24, 2022, Jean Guerrero, who is now a contributing writer at the New York Times, wrote, concerning Havana Syndrome targets. Watching this documentary, I thought about the thousands of private citizens who call themselves targeted individuals who've reported similar experiences, including perceived attacks by remote-controlled weapons causing long-term illness. They have been sounding the alarm for years about possible electromagnetic weaponry deployment on U.S. soil, but they have been derided as delusional. Among them is my father, a Mexican immigrant who worked in shipbuilding in San Diego. Before he was laid off, he believes the CIA experimented on him with electromagnetic weapons that caused him to collapse in pain and develop insomnia, among other things. Coincidentally, I've lived in San Diego County since 2009. But my point is, we have here a New York Times contributing opinion writer telling us her father was a government gang stalking target who believes he was targeted with electromagnetic weapons. We have an article entitled, The Pentagon Fears That Deadly Microwave Weapons Are Undetectable. That appeared in Forbes by Michael Peck, who covers defense and national security, who said in it, directed energy weapons such as lasers and microwaves had enjoyed an exotic aura. They were seen as tools for destroying ICBMs and drones or for dispersing rioters. But the fact that the U.S. military wants its foot soldiers to detect microwave attacks suggests that these weapons may become a part of conventional warfare. Future battlefields are likely to be in difficult terrain, such as cities and tunnels, where an energy weapon might be just as useful as a rifle. So directed energy weapons are here. The military is concerned about them. And you can bet if our adversaries have them, our military is developing them too. Then we have News Nation, who has done a series of reports on how the U.S. government in the past has tested its new weapons on unsuspecting citizens. You can see those reports of testing radioactive material on citizens on News Nation's podcasts, which are on YouTube. Just go to News Nation on YouTube, look under podcasts, and listen to Natasha Zurve, The Truth of the Matter, video reports of U.S. weapons experiments on citizens. The best predictor of future behavior is the past. The U.S. government has tested new weapons on citizens before, so they are likely testing their new electromagnetic weapons, NeuroWeapons, on again today. And who would make better targets than citizens in the government gang stalking program, labeled a conspiracy theory without any congressional investigation? I'm interested in all this because I've been a government gang stalking target since 2006. Back then, when my gang stalking began, I had read about a gang stalking target in New Jersey, Frank Raffaelli, passing out leaflets in New Jersey about gang stalking. This was at the very beginning of what I saw on YouTube as stories of electronic harassment. Because I had never experienced it, and it sounded far out, I didn't believe it. Frank told me if I kept on saying I thought electronic harassment was government disinformation to discredit gang stalking targets, he would stop communicating with me. The next time I tried to communicate with Frank, I found that he was dead. Since my gang stalking began in 2006, I have been trying to expose it, to expose the mobbing by first responders and the Reds, gang stalkers who use red cars, red trucks, etc. They dress in red. The FBI calls this conspicuous surveillance. So I've been trying to expose the mobbing, the unremitting harassment that goes on 24/7 in U.S. government gang stalking. I have a website at stopgangstalkingplease2.com. Does our gang stalking government delete some of the things on my website? Yes. They continuously try to hide what they do and to discredit whistleblowers. In March 2024, my harassment in my neighborhood increased. It seemed to me because Trump was of the Trump election. I don't think they knew what to expect from him. So there was a greater push to get me to move out of the neighborhood where I expose what's going on. They even get neighbors and people in the neighborhood to gang stalk you. The noise around my house increased. Noise with power equipment, construction noises, which is a government gang stalking harassment pattern. And this is interesting, I got repeated letters from a woman, not a corporation that buys homes, but an individual woman who signed her name, who said she liked the neighborhood and wanted to buy my house. Isn't that interesting that a lady would just, out of the blue, pick a house in a neighborhood, my house, and say she wants to buy it? I found that interesting, and it seemed to confirm what I thought, that the harassment that was going on in March 2024, the increased harassment was due to the fact they wanted to get me out. They wanted to buy my house. Of course, if I sold my house and went into any other neighborhood, the gang stalking would be continued. Because I tried that once. I moved from Newburgh, New York to Oceanside, California. My gang stalking continued, and I was gang stalked in several states on my way here. All right, back to March 2024. One day I was eating in my dining room when I felt a sensation on my shoulder that felt like I had been punched. My shoulder was sore for about 2 days after that. Another day, I was sitting in my bathtub taking a bath when I felt what seemed like a punch in my left breast. It was sore for about 3 days after that. Then in May 2024, I was sitting in my dining room eating when I felt a pressure in the back of my head. It felt like a headache in the back of my head, which was very strange. The experience was repetitive. On May 10th, I developed tinnitus, which has never gone away. This was in my left ear. I was also feeling very exhausted. That tinnitus seems to be permanent. When I went to take my blood tests in June of 2024, I'm hypothyroid, my TSH was a shocking 19.68, when the normal range was 0.1 to 4.50. Up to this point, my results were fairly consistent with my remaining on the same dose of Synthroid medication for years. When I retook my TSH in December 2024, it was 15.62, very high. So I go online and I look for articles, and I did find a PubMed article which talked about a mice experiment where they were testing these high voltage wires, EMFs on mice to see if it affected the endocrine system. So here was an experiment to see if EMFs affected the endocrine system of mice. And when my gang stalking increased in March 2024, when I believe my NeuroWeapons were being used, my TSH soared on 2 occasions. After it never went that high. Well, let's go on to the next thing. I had a meniscus tear in my right knee, so I knew how it felt and how it healed. Then I had a meniscus tear in my left knee. For a while, my brother and I didn't go out as my left knee, the meniscus tear in my left knee was healing. I found a good brace on Amazon, and I went onto Twitter, because I'm always on Twitter, saying that I believed that me and my brother could start to go out the next day because of this brace. The next day when I woke up, I couldn't bend my knee without pain, which made it hard to walk. Strangely, The pain was on the opposite side of the knee than where I had experienced the tear. I believe, I know my emails are monitored, my Twitter account is monitored, everything I do in my house is monitored. This government gang stalking is a 24/7 total surveillance program. Now let's get to the present. On December the 9th, for the few days, about 3 days before then, I started experiencing pain on the top left side of my head. I've noticed what I believe are NeuroWeapons attacks by gang stalkers. I believe they have to come from buildings next to your home. I read an article about that, NeuroWeapons, and it said that, you know, there are portable microwave weapons, but you can only use them close by. You can't use them from a mile away, from 10 miles away. So I believe that I am, after 2 decades of government gang stalking, just mobbing and unremitting harassment, now in the last days of, why am I saying that, of government gang stalking, they're starting to use NeuroWeapons. This has caused my tinnitus in my left ear, and as you will see, what has happened, when I woke up this morning, I have tinnitus in my right ear now. So after this latest slew of what I believe are NeuroWeapons, probably coming from a house close to mine, against me, I've developed tinnitus again, but in my right ear. So now I have tinnitus in both ears. All right, let's see if I can get back to my notes after being spontaneous here. Well, it seems to me that, because I actually am trying to be observant about this, that the pain that I experienced recently, it happens when I'm in the bathroom taking a bath, or it happens when I'm in my dining room, sitting at my dining room table. I spend a lot of time when we're eating because I have to not only feed myself, but also feed my profoundly mentally handicapped brother. So I'm there for about an hour at meals, and it's then when I feel this pressure in the back of my head. So both the bathroom and the dining room are on the same side of my house. I find that interesting. When I go in certain rooms in my house, and I'm not going to name them, because if I name them, then I'm going to start experiencing things there, because that's what the gang stalkers do. But they're mainly, it's only two rooms in my house where I feel that I'm actually being attacked by a NeuroWeapon, where I feel this pressure in the back of my head, on the top of my head, where I feel, where I felt a pain, like it was a punch in my breast, where I felt a pain, where there was a punch in my shoulder. That's happened in my dining room, at my dining room table, and in the bathroom when I'm taking a bath. All right, so let's go down to the next part. We know that Dr. Rauni Kilde, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, it's Rauni as a first name, Kilde. You can see her resume on my website, was a distinguished doctor who spent her adult life going to international conferences where she would find out government secrets. She was married to a diplomat for a while, and she would publish what she found. She also was a government gang stalking target. So this was like in Finland. This is not just going on in the United States. Her manual for organized gang stalking operations can be found near the bottom of my website, stopgangstalkingplease2.com, and her manual for organized gang stalking operations is also online. It was part of a book she published. That's what she would do. She would go to international conferences. If she found out things, for instance, that violated civil liberties, she would write them in her books. She was a gang stalking target, and she died of multiple tumors. I was watching a YouTube video where people next to her thought she was murdered. We know there are several articles written by a mechanical engineer. He was from Australia, about his gang stalking, and that was Dr. Engida, Engida, that's his first name, Lemma, Lemma. So gang stalking, as I said, is not just happening in America. The last link I have with his articles on it was Medium, medium.com/@nlemma, EN period LEMMA. We know former FBI agent Ted Gunderson gave an affidavit in Keith Salvador Labella's FOIA request for information on gang stalking. So former FBI agent Ted Gunderson believed he was a gang stalking target, and toward the end of his life he believed that possibly in an apartment next to him, from an apartment next to him, that he was being physically targeted with NeuroWeapons. What did he do? He moved into another state where he died of cancer. We know our intelligence agencies, the military, possibly private contractors, would have a nationwide government, wouldn't have a government gang stalking program nationwide without a lot of disinformation online to make supposed whistleblowers look like kooks and government gang stalking to look like a conspiracy theory. Lastly, we know that Catherine Herridge, Herridge, wrote an article, and it's on my website, stopgangstalkingpleasedo.com, entitled, "It's Terrifying. CIA Whistleblower Exposes the Biden Administration's Energy Weapon Attack Cover-Up." So this is an investigative journalist. What you see is there's a lot of people coming out with this idea that government gang stalking is not a conspiracy theory. News Nation is saying, hey, look at what our government did in the past. Look at how they used radioactive weapons on citizens. You have Catherine Herridge saying, look at what Biden did. He hid, CIA whistleblower exposes the Biden administration weapon attack cover-up. You have that now she's with the New York Times journalist saying that her father was a government gang stalking target. You have people like the distinguished doctor that I show on my website who wrote the manual, and if you read that manual, that's what happens, baby, in government gang stalking. She got it right. So, and she believed that she was being physically targeted, and she did die. So you can do whatever, think whatever you want about that. We've seen the interview on YouTube with Dr. Beatrice Golomb, Golomb, professor of medicine at the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine, on the Havana Syndrome and pulsed radio frequency microwave radiation. So what is she saying? She's saying what happened to the Havana Syndrome targets was pulsed radio frequency microwave radiation attack. Now it's time for Congress to investigate U.S. government gang stalking and the experimenting with neuroweapons on citizens again. Please go to my website, stopgangstalkingpleasedo.com. Please help me to expose government gang stalking. Please ask your congressperson to investigate it. Thank you.